Everybody, it's 9:01. We're gonna get started. Thanks to Carmina and Jenna, who are gonna facilitate most of this. My name is Laura Nevin. I'm the operations manager with Keystone, and I'm here to just share the recording we did with Attorney General Shapiro the other afternoon. And we're gonna play that for everybody. One little tip is we're gonna let folks know that on your screen in the upper right-hand corner over the video, if you hover, you should get three little dots. And if you click on that, you then enable the full screen. Otherwise, viewing it just in this screen is going to cut it off a little bit. So we are also recording this session, and it'll be ready for playback for folks later today if you want to come back and look at it. But just so folks know, if you want to see that whole thing. So I'm going to just go ahead and run this and enjoy. And I'm going to go off screen. I'll be around if people have questions, and you can ask questions in the chat, but I'll leave this to Jenna and Carmine. Do you guys, either one of you, want to say anything before I do this?
No, I don't think so. I mean, so this is the interview that was done with Attorney General Josh Shapiro on Thursday afternoon.
Yep. All right, here we go. Enjoy.
Good morning.
It'll tell you everybody needs to click OK that you recognize it's recording, and then I'm going to turn my camera off. Are we going to do Josh is going to give his little.
Well, we're going to go closer to that. If it's okay with everybody, I would just like to open up with what is important in the context of why we're here. Josh said, I'm going to ask you a question. Nick's going to ask you a question. Then we're going to end with the last question. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this is important for the recording for our audience. The people who make up today's progressive movement share a fundamental set of American values: equal opportunity, mutual responsibility, effective and responsive government, and the hope and aspirations for better, more inclusive and prosperous future for all that live and work in Pennsylvania and the United States. As we hold our 13th annual summit, we celebrate these shared values and build them to our discussions of strategy, programming, messaging, and policy. So, Attorney General, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. We're just going to get right into the meat of the matter of this conversation. At the onset of this, please tell us why progressives should vote for you for their next governor.
Because look, I've got a long track record of taking on big fights and fighting for our progressive values, and most importantly, getting things done. Let me give you a few examples of that. When 1.9 million people in Western Pennsylvania were about to lose access to healthcare, I brought together Highmark and UPMC to be able to protect people's access to healthcare. Let me give you another one. When people in rural communities all across the Commonwealth were talking to me about the negative impacts fracking were happening on their public safety, on the health of their children, we filed criminal charges against those fracking companies and put forth a grand jury report that laid out the standards by which those companies need to operate in order to operate here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I've been unafraid to take on big fights. And when I do that, we deliver real results. I think I'm pragmatic. I'm progressive. I know how to get things done, and I know how to deliver for the good people of Pennsylvania, whether it comes to protecting their clean air and pure water, their education system, their healthcare system, whatever the case may be. I think it's also important to note that as the Commonwealth's chief law enforcement officer, I've been able to bring together the community, the police, reform advocates, to actually get meaningful reforms passed. Like when we came together in the wake of the killing of George Floyd to create a database here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to track police officer misconducts, to help bring law enforcement and the community closer together. Those are examples of concrete deliverables and a willingness to take on big fights and tough situations and get things done for the good people of Pennsylvania.
Mr. Presley?
Fantastic. Thank you, Attorney General Shapiro. Pennsylvania faces a number of issues, some that were before the pandemic, and a lot of which has been exacerbated since the pandemic. But a lot of these issues can be traced back to poverty and income inequality. And these issues, those 2 points have effect on our education, where we have one of the lowest state shares of education funding in the nation. Our minimum wage has been stuck at $7.25 an hour. The pandemic has damaged our local businesses. Our housing is in trouble here. Rent is too darn high, and it's getting higher. Coupled with that minimum wage, and then our income inequality is also exacerbated by an upside down system of taxation. Realizing that the governor's office has just a limited role in helping with this, what would you be able to do with 1 or 2 of these issues when you're in your role as governor?
I think you highlight a number of important issues, and I think they're all in many ways inextricably linked. And I would maybe go a half step further than what you said, that if we don't address those issues, we're not only having societal impacts when it comes to, economic issues, but we also make our communities less safe when we don't deal with those issues. One of the reasons I'm running for governor from this post as Attorney General is I've seen too much of the crime, too much of the instability in our communities being directly linked to the fact that we underfund and undervalue public education, housing, mental health care, drug and alcohol treatment, things like that. And so I have various plans to make sure that we grow our economy, not just by making sure that the certain people who have benefited in the past do better, but by making sure we see everyone, particularly those who have been left out. And I think if you look at our economy historically, we've left out communities in rural Pennsylvania that have been left behind. And quite frankly, we've left out a lot of Black Pennsylvanians who have not been able to participate in our economic growth at a time where we need to lift people up and build generational wealth. It's inexcusable that just 4% of all of our state contracts go to Black-owned businesses. That's unacceptable. When the Commonwealth is one of the largest purchasing powers here in Pennsylvania, we need to use that purchasing power to lift people up out of poverty and to give people a chance and give communities that have been left behind opportunities to experience some economic success with a stimulation from the Commonwealth. I also think we need to meet our mandate that's spelled out in our state constitution for what's known as a thorough and efficient education system for all Pennsylvanians. Now, last time I read the Constitution, it doesn't just say a thorough and efficient education system for kids in this zip code or that zip code. It talks about all children. And so we've got to drive more dollars into our fair funding formula to lift children up and give them an opportunity. As I said at the top, I see too much crime and violence in communities that can be directly traced back to children who are in poor performing schools where they feel like they don't have economic opportunities in the future. And then layer on top of that, the fact that we're not adequately funding many of the social services that are needed for them and their parents. All of this fits together. And as governor, you'll see in my first budget, a real commitment to addressing these underlying challenges.
So Nick, let me go in with my question, and I think then we'll have time for our great other questions. Josh, we're getting this in. So Attorney General, how do you see
Call
yourself?
me Josh. Josh is totally.
Well, I'm from Montgomery County. I love you dearly, so I definitely know you as Josh. But I want to respect your position.
No. Listen, I only make my 4 children call me General. You can call me Josh, okay?
So Josh, tell us this. I personally, as a Black woman in this state, want a strong governor. Okay. Yeah. And so I really want you to tell me how you are going to lead the General Assembly, the state legislature, if it becomes divided or imbalanced again with majority of Republicans. How are you going to tackle on that monstrosity of issues that we have now?
Look, the way I've dealt with all of the other challenges I've faced in the past, which is to identify the problem, study the heck out of it, understand it, and then bring people together around some common sense solution-based approach where we can actually get something done. Listen, people elect us to these positions in order to get something done, to make their lives just a little bit better, right? And so we've got to figure out ways to kind of break the partisan fever and bring folks together and get things done. I did that when I served in the legislature. I did that when I became the first Democrat to lead Montgomery County, Pennsylvania's third largest county, since the Civil War era. And I've done that as Attorney General, bringing people together from all different walks of life to actually get stuff done. So I would say to you as a Pennsylvanian that you can count on me to build coalitions to get things done. Now, you also said something real interesting. You said, as a Black woman, I want to know, and then you went on with your question. I don't want to overlook that point that you made. And while I'll be working for all Pennsylvanians, I think we have to acknowledge the simple truth that for too long, Black folks have been left out of the highest reaches of our government. And that is both appointed and elected positions. It's one of the reasons why I chose Austin Davis to be my running mate. He'd not only be Pennsylvania's first Black lieutenant governor, but he also brings a different life experience than me, and he'll be at the table to ensure that all people are seen, that all communities get heard from. I think that that's critically important when you're building a government, and I've done this now multiple times in Montgomery County when I built a senior team, here in the Attorney General's office where we've done that. We build teams that look like the folks that I was sworn to serve, to ensure that everybody's viewpoint is accounted for around the table. I think that is really important, because if you want to get to solutions that help people, you got to make sure you're hearing from all folks and all different walks of life and perspectives. And that's what I'll do as governor.
Nick, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
So, Josh, I've been, as a Southeastern resident, I've been around rural PA for the last 2 years, and I'm a big public education advocate. And I want to just leave you with this thought, and then we want to ask you a real quick question. I want to share this with you. In my research, I found that when we have rural school districts and they're 97% white, the poverty rate is 30 to 50%. But when you add Black and brown to that, where that exists in Williamsport, in Johnstown, in Uniontown, and all those areas where they do have a more significant percentage of Black folks or Black and brown folks, the poverty rate is 50 to 90%. So including that group of people, when we want to get everyone engaged in this election, let's not forget those pockets of people that are amongst the poverty levels out there, but they have significance too. So I just wanted to share that with you, because I didn't know if you knew how stark that was.
Yeah.
I think for me, being from the Southeast region and being exposed to that, personally, Josh, I have been changed. I am transformed by that experience.
And
So yes, go ahead, Nick.
And if I can add, Josh, I live in Center County. I went to high school in Blair County. I experienced some of this firsthand. I'm actually a formerly incarcerated activist that has been on the other side of the Attorney General's office on a couple of different occasions. But it's very, very heartening to hear what you're saying here. I know we're running out of time. I think we want to take a second to get to know Josh Shapiro, the man, a little bit here, and not the politician. Right? So we've got a couple less heavy questions for you. First off, what is your favorite holiday? Or I'm sorry, what is your favorite family activity? My bad. What is your favorite family activity?
So favorite family activity, I mean, stating the obvious is all of us being together. Lori and I are blessed with 4 kids. So just doing anything together is pretty special. But I'd have to say playing pickup basketball. We have some pretty intense games. I love to play, and my kids love to play. So for us to get out there and have that opportunity to play in the driveway is just awesome.
That's fantastic. Carmina?
So, Josh, what is a favorite city in the United States that you like besides the one that you live in? What's another favorite city of yours outside of Pennsylvania?
Oh, man, so you're making me pick a place outside of PA?
Yes.
I guess, look, for us, we've had the opportunity over some summers to go to the beach down in South Carolina in Hilton Head. And just for me, being able to be outside with my kids, bike every day, play in the ocean, just laugh with one another and spend time with one another, that's pretty amazing. And I don't know if it has as much to do with the city of Hilton Head as it does just, it represents a place where we all get to be together and spend time together.
All right, Nick, last one.
Low country cooking, so that's kind of nice.
Absolutely.
Gotta love that country cooking. Facts. You could say no to this, but you want to share with us a nickname your parents used to call you?
So they didn't really call me a nickname, but I will tell you my nickname growing up in school was Shaps, S-H-A-P-S, Shaps. As everybody called me in school, it's what they called me on the basketball court. That's what they called me really till I went and started working. That was what most people knew me as.
Well, Josh, we really thank you for your time, and we're being respectful of your time as well. Just know we had lots of other questions. So you can always come back after the primaries to do a highlighted conversation or town hall. I do want to also say, Josh, I don't know if this is correct, and we can delete this if we have to, but I think it would be really great to do a town hall series across the state with women of color, have a one-on-one with them all, in particular, because I know, like, even in Montgomery County, middle-aged women come to me to advise them about different choices they should make on the ballot. And I think that women in Pennsylvania have a really unique way of getting the vote out, whether it's their coworkers, whether it's their families, whether it's the group. So I think it would be an excellent opportunity for you to go around the state and have conversations with women of color.
I'd love that. We've done a number of them. When I put out my economic plan to elevate Black Pennsylvanians, we met with a number of women-owned, Black-owned businesses and business owners, pardon me. So I'd love to do more of those roundtables. I genuinely enjoy the opportunity to, do less talking and more listening and hear what's on folks' minds. So absolutely, the answer is yes. Let's get that on the schedule and get out there and do those meetings.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
You got it. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So we have a little bit of time here to kind of chat, and we're expecting to have a little bit more time with the Attorney General. We were not able to get to all of our questions, so we kind of wanted to talk to you all, see what your questions are, see what you've thought, and what we can take back to him, and hopefully get some answers for questions we were not able to ask him today. So what we're going to do is, if you have thoughts or questions, you can either drop them in the chat, or you should have a blue button at the top right of your screen that says ask to share audio and video. If you click on that, you can come up and speak if you would like to. So looks like we got Jessica here. Go ahead, Jessica.
I'm trying to get rid of my picture.
Well, we can't see you.
What?
We cannot see you now.
Hold on.
No, that's great. If you don't want to be seen, you're not seen right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can't hear any of you.
So, Jenna, I was looking at the chat box and listening to the video. Could Jordy and Tom kind of explain the lieutenant governor thing versus the governor? I didn't understand that correlation. What was going on over there, Jenna?
So I know that came up whenever he was talking about Austin Davis.
Jordy or Tom, do you want to get in?
Governor, not him. Or we picked the lieutenant governor, not him. Oh, so I think Jordy's saying that, the lieutenant governor is elected separately. And maybe perhaps something about Josh Shapiro picking. Not sure. Tom, we elect the lieutenant governor. He said lieutenant governor, I choose.
So, if I may,
he said he chose Austin Davis as his running mate, and then Jordy was pointing out that the lieutenant governor is actually a separately elected office.
Yeah, this is the first time that you see a ticket. I mean, some other states, the way that the Constitution is set up, the lieutenant governor and the governor, they run together as a ticket. In Pennsylvania, they run in and get elected independently. So you don't have one box you check for both of them. You have to check separate boxes for people. This is the first campaign that I remember that they both the governor and lieutenant governor are running as a one ticket. They're running together, but they get elected separately.
Because I think this candidate actually picked a lieutenant governor teammate, and with the chat that was going back and forth, and I think what Jordy's comment actually ticked it off for me was that this is the first time that you're looking at separate individuals but running as a team. I think that Josh was trying to indicate what Austin was bringing to the ticket for him as well. And what I got out of the conversation was they merge as not necessarily Austin and Josh, but as one entity. When you're voting for the governor, you're voting for both. Even though, as Pedro says, you're correct under Pennsylvania election law, you're actually voting for two positions. But we need to elect the team.
Well, it's interesting, like Richie just said, yeah, there still is a primary for lieutenant governor. So it should be interesting. I mean, in my opinion, I think that Josh came out the gate certainly as a single formidable candidate on purpose. And, selecting somebody early to be their teammate was another tactical strategy. So it's going to be interesting to see if voters, and I think in different areas in the state, I know in Montgomery County, it's not a fait accompli that they would vote for who their people are asking. I think people have independent choices. So this is going to be an interesting election in terms of getting people out to really look at the candidates that are running for lieutenant governor. And I would ask everybody that's on here to come in. I guess we're at 1:00 today, Jenna, to really have to view the approach that we're taking in talking to the lieutenant governor candidates. I think it's going to be a very insightful way to make some distinctive choices between the two. So please come back on at 1:00 because it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's good that we have a lieutenant governor candidate debate. But just to close out, because I'm going to have to leave for a short period of time. But I think what you were saying about Josh's strategic role in this decision, I thought was excellent and on target because it was strategic for him. In Pennsylvania, we've always had this historic dichotomy of East and West and people of color and Caucasian. And what I think Josh was trying to do was to marry all of that into one entity. And I think he did well as a strategic move in doing that. And I think Josh knows that Austin's going to bring a lot to the ticket as they run as a team. Anyway, those are my thoughts on that.
Tom, where do you live? What part of the state do you live?
I live just south of Reading, Pennsylvania, in Berks County.
Okay.
Actually 4.5 miles from the turnpike in Morgantown.
Okay, great. Jessica, if you don't mind, I don't know if you can. Thank you, Tom. Can we get your email address so we can send Josh the question and get his answer? But if you don't mind putting your email address there, we can send the answer back to you. Does that make sense, Jenna?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if she can hear, so I'm going to drop that in the chat as well.
Okay. Anybody else that's on this call want to put something in the chat or come on and talk to us about what you thought? I mean, just a little bit of background. We had planned to talk to Josh for about 50 minutes. We ended up ended up having a hard stop of 20 minutes. And so we didn't get into the meat of the matter, but it definitely gives us an opportunity to go back and have a more in-depth conversation as it gets closer to the general election. So anybody else have any thoughts? This is really a key race for us, and if we don't get all segments of our community out to vote, that is going to be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, if nobody else has anything, I mean, I'll certainly add my 2 cents here. I mean,
Go ahead.
You know, as a formerly incarcerated person, I had a lot of reservations about Attorney General Josh Shapiro as the gubernatorial candidate. But I think he's so far doing a good job of really addressing those issues. I liked really some of the answers that, you know, he gave in this interview. And I mean, at the end of the day, this is the candidate, right? Like, I mean, I know some people feel some type of way about there being no other candidates and think we should have a primary. But at the end of the day, this is the best candidate for governor out there, right? Because our other choices are Doug Mastriano, Jake Corman, Dave White, you know, this whole plethora of just people who will be absolutely awful. You know, if we do not elect Josh Shapiro governor, Pennsylvania could be in a world of hurt when we end up with somebody like Doug Mastriano or Jake Corman. You know, and so I think it's really, really important that, you know, everybody who cares about progress in Pennsylvania, qualms about Josh Shapiro or not, we all have to put it aside and make sure that this man gets elected, because we can't afford to see what happens if he does not.
Well, and that's a really good point. I'd like to talk to people about that, because the reality is we have to get the electorate out to see those differences. I just want to give you a snapshot. And I was telling, I think I told somebody last night, in 2016, I was in Philadelphia helping Black churches get the vote out. And they would have all these conversations with Generation X and the millennials. And the Black young residents in Philly said, I voted for Bernie in the primary, but my grandmother is telling me to vote for Hillary. Why should I vote for Hillary? And nobody talked about the consequences of electing a Trump in office, right? Or the consequences of having a Republican majority, a hard right conservative leadership. And I think that's some of the contrast that we need to bring out. We need to talk about these are going to be the impact if we have a Republican governor, a Republican legislature. I mean, we also need to talk about the opportunity that we have now that the redistricting of our state and our state maps are done. We do have a possibility of getting a Democratic majority, either in the House or the Senate. So I would just like to ask people there, Jordy, why don't you come on? Okay. So, I mean, that's a lot. I would like people to talk about that, because it's going to take all of us, like a whole coalition of people, to mobilize our immediate areas. And I would like people to talk about that and what we can do about that. Do you not agree, Jenna, that, I mean, this is a different election, and we don't talk about why we need to vote based on the real dynamics that are going to happen. Like, we need to flesh that out.
Yeah. I mean, I live in central Pennsylvania. I actually live in Jake Corman's district. And I know a lot of people on both sides of the aisle see Jake Corman as the front runner in that primary. I can tell you I haven't seen a single Corman sign around his district. I drive around it frequently. I lived here my whole life. There is not a single Corman sign to be seen, not even in Jake Corman's hometown. There are Doug Mastriano signs everywhere. And I am personally terrified because I think that Doug Mastriano is going to win the Republican primary. And I think that he is actually the harder candidate for Shapiro to beat, because he has such a large grassroots following. And he's putting out some actually really smart ads. He's got smart messaging. He's an organizer. He's a grassroots organizer. He is very smart. He has 4 master's degrees. He's a decorated veteran. He is not Donald Trump. Okay.
Right,
This
right.
man is much, much, much more dangerous than Donald Trump. And he has come up through this right-wing, super conservative, religious, pretty much want to pave the road to Gilead sect of the religious right. And him becoming governor should be all of our worst nightmares, because all of our rights are up for grabs at that point if this man becomes governor.
You know what I found out, Jenna, on Friday or Thursday night, one of those nights, he actually got 24,000 signatures for his ballot.
He got more than all the other Republican candidates combined. And that's absolutely, that's my worst. That's the things, my nightmares are me, quite honestly. And so there's we have a lot of work we need to do. You know, it is not going to be an easy election for any Democrat. It's going to be a tough year. Just, political science, political history shows that, after a Democrat or Republican taking the White House, and look how well the Democrats did in 2018 after Trump won the presidency. Now Democrat has won the presidency, it tends to swing back the other way. And so we have a lot of work cut out for us. And I just can't reiterate enough how badly we really need everybody.
Well, and let's talk about that, because Malcolm Kenyatta had said in one of the forums I saw prior to last night that you have to look at the numbers, right? And you have to look at what are the bottom line numbers that you can work with and reach out to. And I think he was using it in his viability of being an electable candidate, that he could get Philly out and some of the other areas. And I think that's what we need to talk about once these primaries are over and we have a lieutenant governor candidate, we have a Republican governor candidate, to look at where are the numbers and what we can do and who do we need to reach out to. One of the things, and this isn't a plug-in for me, but I'm trying to offer what I'm trying to do. I happen to be a Civic Saturday fellow, and I made a choice to create a statewide tour. And I looked at the counties in our state by region and the second half of the counties that had the lowest per capita income to address where we need to go. And unbeknownst to me, in the Western region, the lowest per capita county is Forest County, 14,000. In Central region, it's Juniata County at like 20,585. And in the Northeast, it's Towanda Bradford County at 20,800, and Philadelphia at 21,000. And my role as a fellow is to go into these spaces, create a community gathering to talk about the power of citizenship and democracy and what it looks like. And the way that I've been trained to structure a gathering, it yields the conversation of what do you want to do with your citizenship? Don't necessarily look at political affiliations. Look at your life. Look at the quality of life. What do you want? What do you want to get out of it? So I say all that to say that we have to take different approaches at really getting people to think why they should vote and why now and what that means. And then the other piece to that is, as I've been traveling across the state, some areas have their own groupthink that they're like, why is she coming into our community? She's an outsider. But we need to embrace the fact that we are all Pennsylvanians. We all live in this state. And what impacts you somewhere on the western side or the southwestern side impacts us somewhere down the line. But what's interesting in Harrisburg, some of the rural legislators talk about Philadelphia, but the reality is Philadelphia holds the budget, holds the income for this state. And because there's 48 rural counties. That's why we keep getting a majority in Harrisburg, but the money is coming from the major cities. And so we've got to kind of like re-educate the voters. And it's been my experience as a woman of color from the Southeast region. I have yet to be lynched or assaulted in deep red country. And that just means that if you spend the time to engage and have conversations, I think there are pliable ways to get people that have been in rural PA, that are in the poverty line, to really think about their quality of life. So I just invite everybody that's on this call that after the primaries, we have to think big, we have to think bold, and we cannot do this by ourselves. It's going to take a coalition of all sorts of people to help us work to rethink what we need for our government.
Absolutely agree with all of that. I think one thing that we have we are more alike than we are different for the most part, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people, there's a lot of othering that happens, and you have poor white people and poor Black people and people of color hating each other, when really they have a lot more in common. And if they would come together, they would realize it. Like I talk about this a lot as somebody who grew up in a trailer park in central Pennsylvania. There's a reason that I get along so well and end up working with so well with my colleagues who are from inner city Philadelphia, because we have very similar upbringings. We grew up in very similar situations. We have very similar life experiences, because poverty causes the same issues no matter where you are. And I have more in common with a person who grew up poor in Philadelphia as a person who grew up poor in Center County than I do with a lot of the students who come from New York to go to Penn State, or a lot of the people who come to Penn State and have their parents paying. I don't have anything in common with those people, even though they might come from places with people who look like me. We certainly haven't had the same life experiences, but I've certainly shared life experiences with the people who grew up Black and poor in the inner city, right? So like, I think bridging that gap is so important, like making people realize that, like, hey, like, you have a lot more, the people in Center County or the people in, Tioga County have more in common with those people in Philadelphia than they think. But there's this like automatic othering that happens once you say Philadelphia or you say rural PA. There's that connection is lost on people.
Absolutely. And can I point something out, Jenna? Do you mind? And I think I said it last night or some other night, but at the heart of the pandemic in March 2020, by the week after everything was shut down, I had friends from Southwest PA that were teachers that were telling me that the families in Greene County had to get their school packets delivered to them by bus drivers because they didn't have Wi-Fi access or they didn't have laptops. Well, that was going on in Philadelphia too. There was a significant portion of students in the Philadelphia school system a week after the pandemic shut down that didn't have access to Wi-Fi and didn't have laptops. But yet Comcast was down here in Center City, right? So the point is, you take the two farthest parts of our state, and they had the same issue a week later after the pandemic shut down. And I think those are the things that we have to capture to say, look, we're all Pennsylvanians and we got to care about each other. So I just want to point out that is a fact.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, I was knocking doors. My friend is running against Carrie Benninghoff in his newly very gerrymandered district that is very, very red. So we were over knocking doors in Lewistown in Mifflin County, which is one of the poorest counties in the state. Very small town, maybe 10,000 people there. And you know, we're knocking doors and talking to people. I mean, and he's the type of person, he'll just talk to anybody. He walks up to people in Trump hats and starts talking to them and is like, you know, hey, I know I'm a Democrat, but you know, this is what I believe in. And we'll just literally, and they honestly, a lot of them are so incredibly receptive because they're just like, they're just looking for anybody to actually show up and care. They haven't seen anybody in a long time, but and again, they share a lot of the same issues with places like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia because it's poverty. They've had loss of industry. They've had just been battered by this economy and jobs moving overseas. And there is just a vast amount of poverty that, you know, you have kids in the, you know, having to go to McDonald's to try and get Wi-Fi to do their homework. I mean, and that was before the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, you know, right, exactly, those same experiences that happened in Philadelphia. Does anybody else have anything to add? Anybody else want to come up and say a few words here? Yeah, I know broadband internet is a really big problem everywhere in this state. And that's actually, you know, I think that's something to be interesting to also ask Josh Shapiro about is, you know, what are his plans to help get the infrastructure we need across the state. That's infrastructure has been a big issue, not just with internet. I mean, we've had bridges crumbling in Pittsburgh. So I would be interested to know how he'll use the governor's office to push for more investments in our infrastructure. I don't know what time is this slated till, Carmina? Yeah, I mean, if nobody else has anything, I think we could go ahead and wrap this up.
So, Jenna, everybody that's on here, just so we can stay connected, do you mind putting your email addresses in there? Because I think what I would like to do, I already texted his campaign to ask him whether or not, how many signatures he got on the ballot. They didn't respond. So people that feel comfortable, thank you. Please put your email addresses in there. And Jenna, if you could copy and paste, because I'm juggling with something else, then we can stay connected and we can also ask him for a follow-up. I think that's completely reasonable. So James, maybe even if you put your names, thank you, Tom, just because we don't know, I don't know how you registered. And so this is a way of documenting who was here that wants to stay connected with us. And Jenna, I'm going to pop off. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. I'll keep this open. Collect all these.
Thank you, Laura. If there's a way that we could keep those email addresses so we can follow up with them.